Ryan Grimm is the Washington bureau chief of The Intercept and a TYT contributor as well. And he's got interesting news about Democratic primaries. So Ryan, let's get right to it. We've got one of the best progressives in the country, Cori Bush, running in Missouri against Lacey Clay, a Democratic incumbent. She was one of the 4 people featured in Knock Down the House, the movie that AOC was also featured in. She's one of the original Justice Democrats. She's a Justice Democrat now. And that race was very difficult 2 years ago. Now, apparently, it's a little closer. So what are the updates in that race?
Yeah, it's wild. Amy Vilela was, the candidate in the Nevada race. Campaign manager for Amy Vilela is now the communications director for Cori Bush. So there's that through line. But a lot of people say that if you want to get to Congress, you have to run twice. It's so difficult to knock off an incumbent that it's impossible, not impossible, but borderline impossible to do it the first time. So when she ran in 2018, she ended up losing by 20 points, but 57 to 37. So what you have to do to beat an incumbent in a one-on-one race is pull him under 50%. But in 2018, most people in St. Louis who went out to vote hadn't ever heard of her. She raised about $170,000 for the entirety of her campaign in 2018. And people don't like to talk about it much, but money talks. And if you don't have money, you can't talk to the people in your district. This time, they're going on television with a $50,000 ad buy this week. They have billboards all over St. Louis. They have smaller billboards running around. They're going to be on radio for like 8 weeks running into Election Day. They've got digital ads running. They're spending $85,000 so far, and it's going to be a lot more on mailers, which mailers are incredibly important, as I'm sure you know, in races. Because people don't spend a lot of time studying them, but it gets you to at least know their name, so that when you go to the ballot, you say, okay, I have a choice between this person and another person that I've heard of. So at least they're making a choice. But the news that I can report now is that not only has Cori Bush raised close to $500,000 for this race and counting, but all of a sudden you have these weird dark money, big money groups on the left coming in for her. So Citizens United, we're almost a decade into it, and so the left has been trying to overturn Citizens United the entire time. Meanwhile, now you have people on the left who are saying, look, if we're not going to overturn Citizens United, I guess we're going to play. And so you have some extremely rich liberals who are interested in playing in some of these races. And if you think about our economy like a lottery, you're going to kind of accidentally enrich some decent people. And so when some of these decent people get their hands on money, they're going to give it to groups that are going to have an interest in making the world a better place. And so that's happening in St. Louis. You have this group, End Citizens, not End Citizens, you have Fight Corporate Monopolies. This is an anti-monopoly group, which is just launched a 6-figure ad buy, coming after Clay for fighting the Obama administration, which is has political resonance. He spent 6 years or so fighting the Obama administration on this conflict of interest rule. It's essentially this rule that says that if you're an investment advisor, you have to have the best interests of your client at heart when you're making investment decisions. Think about that. Wall Street fought that relentlessly, and when Trump came into office, he overturned that rule. And so Clay and Trump wind up being on the same side against President Obama. So that's a deeply resonant ad. And Sunrise Movement has now endorsed Cori Bush. They have an independent expenditure arm because there are many, and there are many rich liberals who don't want to see the entire world obliterated by climate change. And so they too have an independent expenditure arm, which I'm told may get involved in this, which means that incumbent Democrats had to worry about getting a challenge from the left that might resonate with with regular voters, but they didn't have to worry about TV ads. They didn't have to worry about big money coming their way, and now all of a sudden they do.
So Cori Bush is one of the best people you'll ever meet. She's the leader of the Ferguson protests. Lacey Clay, meanwhile, takes money from big banks, and lo and behold, thinks that big banks should not even serve their own clients. They should be able to rip off their own clients. It's a shocking development how that came about. So that's the corruption we talk about. And yes, the Democratic establishment is neck deep in that corruption. It's not just Trump, it's not just the Republicans. And then the lying media, the mainstream media will say things like, oh, there's no difference between them. No, there's a massive difference between Lacey Clay, who serves at the pleasure of the banks in this country, and Cori Bush, who's an amazing grassroots advocate and activist from that community. By the way, justicedemocrats.com/Cori. This is a super important day. You could make a big difference. That race is coming up right around the corner. justicedemocrats.com/Cori. That's CORI. Let's go to Massachusetts, where some of these groups are also looking to help Alex Morrison, another Justice Democrat, against Richard Neal, another corrupt establishment Democrat who's the head of the House Ways and Means Committee. What's going on there, Ryan?
Yeah, this is another interesting race. So Richie Neal has been in Congress basically as long as you and I and pretty much anybody watching has been alive. And so he's the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, and there's almost an AP style guide that says you have to write the powerful Ways and Means Committee, and they're right. It's the committee, that all legislation effectively has to go before, because if you think about the name Ways and Means, ways is how you're going to do something, means is how you're going to pay for something. So it's the committee that effectively runs the government. And one of the biggest wins from the Medicare for All movement was pressuring Richie Neal to hold a hearing on Medicare for All. He had to do it kicking and screaming. As we reported over at The Intercept, that he held a private meeting with his members before the meeting and said, look, yes, I'm holding a Medicare for All meeting, but I don't want anyone to use the words Medicare for All while we're out there in front of the cameras. He's one of the top recipients of insurance cash, and has been hostile not just to that, but to a lot of the progressive agenda for years. Meanwhile, he's being challenged by Alex Morse, who's the mayor of Holyoke, who is not exactly running on Medicare for All, but close to it. He had the city council passed a resolution saying that the country needs to move towards Medicare for All. He's moved the entire city of Holyoke to be carbon neutral. And so, he's setting up a contest between him and Richie Neal as the future versus the establishment. And he always had a decent chance to win, because Neal, as anybody who's been in office for that long, is going to be a little bit out of touch. There was he had a challenger in 2018 who spent almost nothing and got, I think, more than 25-30% of the vote. And so it was always going to be somewhat close. But now you have this anti-monopoly group coming in and spending $300,000, letting people in Springfield, Massachusetts know that Richie Neal has taken this, a particular set of votes that benefited Blackstone, private equity group, and then all of a sudden started getting an extraordinary amount of money from Blackstone. And it's not just that; it's the vote he actually took, and it's on what's called surprise billing. And most people, if they're not familiar with surprise billing from having experienced it, it doesn't take long to explain it to them. It's when you go to the hospital, you get treated by a doctor in that hospital, and they tell you that, oh yes, it's true that your hospital that you went to was in network, but surprise, the doctor that we had contracted with for that one rotation where he came in and checked you, he's not actually part of your network. So surprise, you owe us $20,000. That's called surprise billing. It ought to be criminal. The Democratic House tried to outlaw it this year or last year, and Richie Neal fought against it. And after Richie Neal fought against it, he got a ton of money from Blackstone, which runs most of these doctor groups that benefit from this surprise billing. And so that's the kind of thing that has happened in Washington for decades, and nobody back in Springfield ever finds out about it. So, if Lacey Clay or Richie Neal end up paying a political price because of these types of shenanigans that they were pulling behind the scenes, that changes the calculus for everybody else. Because for somebody like Neal or Clay to say, you know what, I don't agree with this, but I can get $80,000 this fundraiser and sign on to this letter, or I can kill this thing in this committee. Nobody's gonna know what's the big deal. I'll get 80 grand for my campaign, and we all move on. If all of a sudden that stuff is on television back home, that changes everything.
Yeah, of course it won't make it on television and cable news. Cable news loves that.
But you can pay to get on television.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it is on so right, like as we speak, it's on television, and they're dying right now.
Yeah. So we're out of time, but Richie Neal has other problems too. But guys, look at this, man. The corruption is so obvious and rampant. One of the corrupt Democrats takes money to give you surprise billing that ruins your life. The other Democrat takes money from the Wall Street with the specific intention of screwing over their own customers. I mean, this is corruption defined, and the mainstream media never ever talked about it until these progressive groups came by. And now, you know what? They're lions. Look, I'll tell you right now, both of them might win. But Cori Bush or Alex Morse, one of them, I think, has an excellent chance of winning. Two of them have a good chance of winning. So, by the way, that's justicedemocrats.com/Morse, MORSE. We'll put the links down below in the description box on YouTube and Facebook as well. And we didn't even get to Richie Neal's weird corruption on protecting Donald Trump's tax returns.
Right.
Right, and that might have to do with the fact that he didn't want to release his own tax returns because of his own corruption. But it's just unconscionable what he did. So Alex Morse and Cori Bush, those would be massive wins for progressives, and combined with Jamal Bowman would lead to basically Squad 2.0 for just Democrats and progressives. All right, and by the way, everybody check out Ryan's book. We've Got People, where he explains the rise of just Democrats, along with the whole history of the progressive movement in the Democratic Party. We'll put a link to that down below as well. That's at shoptyt.com, and you can check that out at any time. Ryan, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cenk.
Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.